have been constantly reducing, and as at 2019, it has reduced to 0.39 B, which is a 151.14 decline from 2018 trade balance. Adding to that, our import bill has also increased. For example, it's been estimated that our Ghana's import bill exceeds $10 billion annually, and in 2018, the total import bill amounted to about $12 billion. What would you do to improve our trade balance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, by definition, if you want a positive trade balance, then you always have to be able to export more than you are importing. And in that regard, we have put in place with the under the direction of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, which is one of the agencies under my ministry, a very comprehensive national export development strategy. In our view, this is charting a path for Ghana to put export at the center of our national development agenda. So I believe that the implementation of this strategy and implementation plan will help us reverse the statistics that you are referring to. Secondly, I've also made reference to a number of interventions, industrial interventions that are currently ongoing, including the new strategic anchor industries, 10 of them that are new pillars of growth that we are promoting to diversify the economy away from cocoa and gold. So if you add the one district, one factory to these 10 new strategic anchor industries, together with our business resource centers, together with our initiative on establishing industrial enclaves, all these are designed to promote exports in a country, and that's how you can reverse the imbalance in trade. Thank you.
So, as a quick follow-up, are you assuring the committee that when approved...
That's your second question. So there are no follow-ups.
Very well, Chairman. So I will leave the follow-up then and go to the substantive second question. My second question has to do with the current status of the Commander Sugar Factory. As you are aware, the state invested about $37.82 million in this project. As long as the project remains unused, or the project remains a white elephant, it is at a cost to the state. We have received a petition from, it's a joint petition from, I think, Ransford, Vani, and Alhaji Naziru, actually complaining about the abandoned Commander Sugar Factory. What is the current state of the Commander Sugar Factory, and how soon can we begin work?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to respond to the question, I'd like just to give a little bit of background to the Commander Sugar Factory. In 2017, we inherited the Commander Sugar Factory with, I would say, some controversy hanging around it for a number of reasons. So in July 2017, the ministry established a technical audit team made up of experts from the industry, to take a look at the state of the factory, to advise us on how to operationalize the factory, because as we are aware, the factory itself was commissioned on the 30th of May 2016, but it was never operationalized until we took over. So that was the purpose of the technical audit. In October, when we received the report of the technical audit, it indicated, among other things, that a full test run was never completed before the commissioning. And also, that at the time of commissioning, a number of critical parts for the factory had not been installed. So, for example, the industry has a standard practice. You need a crushing plant that crushes the sugar cane. You need what is called the horizontal crystallizer, and you need a vertical crystallizer. And it is only when you have this full complement of machinery and equipment that you can actually produce what is called white sugar or sulfurless white sugar. But at the time of commissioning, it was only the horizontal crystallizer that had been installed. And so technically speaking, it was going to be difficult for you, for the purposes of the test run and the commissioning, to produce white sugar. So what was produced from the test run ended at what comes out of the horizontal crystallizer, which is normally brown sugar. Now, be that as it may, we decided that through the oversight of the Senior Minister's Office, that a forensic audit be conducted to establish the facts about the construction of the factory and all the controversy that was surrounding it. Now, it came to the fore that a valuation that was conducted earlier on, which established the value of the company at $34 million. Later on the revaluation by Pricewaterhouse, which was the transaction advisor, actually established a much lower value. Now, in spite of this revelation, we still decided, as you are alluding to, that we should identify new strategic investors, because the effort that was made in 2016 to divest the shares unfortunately could not materialize. The company that was offered a bid could not perform the financial obligations on it. So PwC, we didn't want to change the transaction advisor. PwC continued with the exercise of identifying a new strategic investor. So this has gone on for some time. I mean, these things take time. It's detailed work that has to be done. So PwC finally went through the exercise, and a new company called Agrotech was selected, and I think I made a report to Agrotech Ghana Limited. I made a report to Cabinet about the status of implementation of Comenda. So Agrotech has been selected as the preferred bidder. But as is normally the practice, the transaction advisor then still has to go into further negotiations with the preferred bidder to arrive at a final settlement, on the basis of which the share and purchase agreement or in this case, we elected for a concession agreement, will be finalized. So as I speak now, the concession agreement has been finalized. There are a few issues that are outstanding to be resolved between the transaction advisor and Agrotech, and then basically the company would then be handed over fully under concession agreement to Agrotech. But let me explain that while all this was going on, early 2020, before COVID struck, Agrotech was going to bring in their technical experts to start looking at the plant, and then also identify areas that needed to be, I would say, put into sound conditioning for the factory now to start working. But unfortunately, this did not happen because of the COVID pandemic. So as I speak now, as soon as the share purchase agreement is fully executed, then the transaction will be closed, and then they can start operating the factory. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And my very final question has to do with various reports of clashes between Nigerian retailers and Ghanaian. No, it hasn't been answered. My question, Mr. Chair. Yes. So the question is, what measures are you taking to address the challenges of Ghanaian retailers and their Nigerian counterparts, given the fact that there is consistent clashes between these two people? When you come to Medina Market, which falls within my constituency, I've had several reports of those potential clashes. What is your ministry going to do to permanently resolve this matter?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as I indicated earlier on, the ministry, working in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have engaged extensively with the GUTA, which is the Association for Ghanaian Traders, with the Nigerians. We've escalated this to the political level. We've met the Speaker of Parliament of Nigeria. They've had a delegation sent here, so we've had our consultations with them. I've had consultations with my counterpart in Nigeria, and then also with the Foreign Minister in Nigeria. And we've agreed on a framework for engagement, and that is why you've seen that there seems to be some relatively calmness over the last couple of months. But I think I made an indication earlier on to a question, similar question, what the issues were, and so I think it's on record. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Honorable Sayini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, in answer to my question, Mr. Chairman, which will be on trade fair, I would like the honorable nominee to demonstrate that he was fully in charge of the ministry and government's trade push, given that the government flagship program for trade, 1D1F Secretariat, was under the presidency, and the appointment of the CEO of Trade Fair was done by the Minister of Finance and not the Minister of Trade. So on those basis, I want to find out from the nominee if he was aware of the redevelopment plan for trade fair, which went through international competitive bidding under the watch of PricewaterhouseCoopers, which got cancelled by the CEO and re-awarded through suspicious tender processes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a little bit confused along the line when he introduced the element of 1D1F, particularly now that my understanding is that you are talking about the Ghana Trade Fair Authority.
Let's clarify it for him, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I said that in answering my question, I would want you to first of all demonstrate that you are fully in charge of the Ministry of Trade, given that government's flagship program, 1D1F, which was supposed to facilitate trade, was under the presidency, and also given that the CEO of Trade Fair was appointed by the Minister of Finance and not the Minister of Trade. Then the question on trade fair, the question on trade fair then counts. So that is the basis upon which I made reference to the 1D1F. I hope you get the drift.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in the first place, the oversight responsibility for the 1 factory was the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Secondly, also, I think you referred to the appointment letter of the Ghana Trade Fair Authority having been signed by the Minister of Finance. Unfortunately, I don't make the appointments to agencies under the ministries. So I unfortunately cannot respond to that. But again, in respect of the Trade Fair Authority, I think I've indicated earlier on that the Trade Fair Authority is an agent, it's a company, it's a private company registered under the Companies Code with a governing board. And so much as we have oversight responsibility for the company, there's still, in terms of management and operational decisions, that still lies in the bosom of the board and the management team. But I've already given a response to the issues that have developed in response of the evacuation of people from the site and some of the other issues that have arisen, including the redeployment of staff. So I'm not sure whether what you're asking.
I asked about the contract that was signed after an international bidding process, which got cancelled by the CEO, for another to be re-awarded to a company under suspicious tender processes. I asked if you are aware of it and if you, as supervising minister, sanctioned that.
I'm not directly supervising the award of contracts. As I said, these are operational issues that are under the direct supervision of the management and the board. I mean, that's basically the structure, even though it is basically a company that has affiliation with the ministry. In terms of management and operational decisions, it's the responsibility of the board and then the management team. Thank you.
Yes, so I'll move to my second question, but just to state that I have a presentation that was done by Honorable Mrs. Gifty Ohene Kunedu, National Coordinator, 1 District 1 Factory, at which she stated that the Office of the President The one district, one factory secretariat, it's situated at the office of the president. It's established to be under the office of the president. But I'll move to my next question. The NBSSI, they already have existing business advisory centers that are stationed at the various district assemblies across the country. Now, with your introduction of the business resource centers, which you spoke of earlier when the Honorable Minority Leader engaged you, what is your plan with the two seemingly similar bureaucratic bodies? And would you also like to tell us how the consultants under the Business Resource Center are remunerated?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, you're absolutely right. There was an existing, I would say, structure which had business advisory centers, BACs, still under the oversight responsibility of the NBSSI, and this was being managed in collaboration with the district assemblies. However, in 2017, we decided that the REP, which is the Rural Enterprises Program, under which the BACs were established, needed to be realigned to the government's priorities. And so we agreed, together with IFAD and then the African Development Bank, that are the sponsors of the REP, that we needed to upgrade the BACs and provide them with the resources, both human resources and fiscal resources, in terms of equipment, for them to be able to deliver on the comprehensive program of rural industrialization and providing support to MSMEs. So against that background, we introduced the concept of business resource centers, which simply is an upgrade of BACs. We haven't cancelled the BACs. So what we've done is that we've established the BRCs in certain districts, as I said, 67 districts, and they have oversight over a number of districts within an operational zone. So let's say a BRC in District A, because it is a more enhanced institutional infrastructure, would provide business development services to other districts within an operational zone, let's say maybe 4 or 5 districts. But then, because you have a limited number of BRCs, it means that if you have 260 districts, you will still not be able to cover all of them with the BRC infrastructure. So we still have BACs that are currently in operation in districts where you do not have BRCs. And so the BACs are now considered as satellite offices of the BRCs. It's just because of the level of infrastructure, but they are all providing the same services. For example, typically a BAC has just one BAC manager and then one support staff, and then probably a driver. I mean, respectfully, if we have an aggressive program for small and medium enterprise development in a district, you cannot have such a lean organization providing the type of services that is required. And so that was the need for building a new, I would say, institutional structure. But essentially, it is an enhancement of the BACs.
All right, to my first question, call them viewer interest questions. Cement and iron rod prices skyrocketing after information about goods to be allowed, after information and sensitization plans in place so that traders know goods that are allowed, and ECOWAS free goods movement. A number of companies have complained lately, for example, the latest Interplus, how they have lost deals and have lost billions of cedis because of charges that they are now asked to pay, especially by Francophone countries, since the introduction of AFTA. And fruit exporters, especially to UK, also complain about our inability to have a trade deal with UK, since Brexit happened in December. So, my question, Honourable Nominee, what plans do you have to ensure that information about how AFTA will operate will be upgraded, and how soon should traders exporting to UK expect a deal with the UK as far as exports of especially fruit is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think the honourable member has kind of fused together so many things, so I wasn't too sure how to connect them. But if I understand you well, the issue in respect of challenges with ECOWAS trade, I think I addressed it earlier, that we've, through engagement and consultation with member states within ECOWAS and with the oversight support of the ECOWAS Commission, have been dealing with these issues from time to time, particularly with Benin, Nigeria, and so on and so forth. With AFTA, I also responded to an earlier question about some of the new elements and components of AFTA, which would help us not replicate the challenges in the free flow of goods between countries. So I addressed that earlier. Now, with respect to Ghana-UK trade, I think it was in response to a question from the minority leader. I've given an extensive review of where we are with the Ghana-UK trade agreement. And just to conclude on the point that after a series of consultations and engagement, hopefully on the 5th of March, Ghana will sign a new trade agreement with the UK to become to come into force on the 5th of March. Oh, so that was another one. The cement and iron was. Can you repeat that part of the question?
Yes, that's why I call them viewer concerns. Cement and iron prices have been skyrocketing of late. What could be the reason?
Now, as I'm sure you are aware, Honourable Member, the significant component of cement is imported from outside the country, and that's clinker. And unfortunately, the prices of clinker, because it's an internationally traded commodity, would also affect the local price of cement. In addition to that, because the imported content is so high, fluctuations in the foreign exchange rate has also been a factor influencing domestic prices. We have a constant dialogue and engagement with the Association of Cement Producers, and they've given us their cost build-up anytime that there's an increase in clinker price or an increase in or changes in foreign exchange rate, and then also sometimes freight shipping costs because it's a bulk commodity. So at any given time, if there's a cost for increasing the price of cement based on these factors, we consult with the industry. Yeah, so basically that's the explanation. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable nominee, by Act 911, the Mahama-led administration in 2016 established the Ghana Export and Import Bank to, among other things, support the financing of export development and promotion in Ghana. A lot of MSMEs have complained that it's very difficult to access funding. What measures are you going to put in place to ensure that qualified MSMEs are able to access this funding to promote export?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Member, the Ministry of Finance has direct oversight responsibility for Ghana Exim Bank, and so there's a limitation as to what explanation I can give in respect of the question that you posed. But I must say that we work very closely with Exim. In actual fact, a significant number of the 1D1F projects have been financed through Exim. But as I'm sure the honorable member is aware, Exim Bank is a policy bank, unlike the other commercial banks that mobilize deposits, from the general public. They have a dedicated source of, I would say, capitalization from government, through the levies that are charged. So they have constraints in terms of how much money they have at any given time to finance projects. But I'm aware that they've gone beyond just the money that is received from the levy to be able to identify other sources of funding to help enhance their capital base. So my understanding, although I cannot speak fully for Exim, my understanding is that they are doing quite well, and their challenge is one of resources. But if there are very specific cases where you believe that a company has been on the drawing board for consideration and it has been unduly delayed, I'll be more than pleased to work with you outside this exercise to see whether we can help facilitate the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In 2018, Ghana earned about $378 million from the export of raw cashew nuts. What policy will you put in place to ensure that we add value to our cashews before we export?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Member, I made reference to the launching of a new national export development strategy. And one of the commodities that we prioritize is cashew, and not just exporting raw cashew, but actually processing and adding value to cashew. The major constraint with the processing of cashew is that there are, I would say, traders from all over the world, particularly from India, that offer higher prices to our cashew farmers, and as it were, entice them to sell their cashew crop to them for raw export, rather than giving their products or commodities to the processors, because the processors have a limitation on how much they can buy, if they want to be competitive on the global market for processed cashew. And so there's always that tension between the price offered by, let's say, these traders as compared to the processors. But fortunately, under the Tree Crop Development Authority, again, cashew has been prioritized. And so part of the work that the Cashew Development Authority will be doing, particularly, I know that's also not under my ministry, but we'll work with them closely to ensure that there's enough cashew crop to support our processing industry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, my last will be on Ghana's textile industry. Honorable nominee, we know there are lots of articles, write-ups on Ghana's ailing textile industry. I can readily remember one by Peter Porty, the textiles and clothing industry in Ghana. What are you going to do about Ghana's textile industry if you are given the nod for the next 4 years?
I thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Member, the challenge in the textile industry has persisted over several decades in our country. There were the good old days when you had the textile industry employing close to 30,000 people, but over the years, for a number of reasons, this has dwindled significantly. Now, when we took office in 2017, we engaged with the industry to put in place a comprehensive program for reform in the textile industry. And there are various elements of this reform program. One is the introduction of what we call tax stamps or authentication stamps, meaning that any importer that is bringing in imported textile prints has to have a tax stamp or an authentication stamp which will identify that particular product that a duty has been paid on it. So that is something that we are working to put in place. We are working very closely with industry. The other policy measure was that we have decided to designate Tema Port as the single corridor for bringing in imported textiles. Because a lot of the smuggling, we realized, were coming from the land borders, from the east. And so we've designated Tema going forward as a single entry point. So that's another policy measure when put in place will hopefully deal with the imported. We've also introduced what we call a textile import management system, where we would, together with the importers and the local manufacturers, agree at any given point in time how much textile prints should be imported into the country to ensure that there's no imbalance between what is locally produced and the demand for textiles. It is also meant to ensure that the piracy of local designs can be managed, so that each manufacturer has to register their designs and each importer has to register their designs, so that we can use that to check piracy. Another policy measure is government is providing incentives to local textile companies to improve their competitiveness. Government has already zero-rated VAT for companies in the textile industry for 3 years. There's a waiver on import duties for raw materials, plant and machinery for the textile companies. There's also a deferred VAT payment for the. So there are a number of incentives that have been introduced to support the local industries. In addition to that, we are facilitating credit to support these companies from the local banks. And last but not the least, we have agreed that we will have a market surveillance strategy or task force that hopefully will be able to monitor the market and to ensure that there's compliance with these policy measures that I've discussed. So you see that the tension that used to exist has actually gone down quite considerably in the textile sector. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Leadership.
Did you ask? You've not asked your question. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Gisela too hasn't had. If we give her just one.
I gave it to her and she didn't take it, oh? Yes, please take one.
Thank you very much. Senior nominee, I like your African print. It's nice. Can you kindly just give us an assurance that Ayensu Starch Factory will finally be up and so that the youth in Autu Senya West can get the necessary employment and all other economic benefits? It was one of the special initiatives when you were Ministry of Trade and Industry in President Kufuor's era. We've just completed a 4-year term of being Ministry of Trade and Industry again. We are going ahead for another 4-year term again. Can you please give us that assurance that when two elephants are fighting, the grass that suffers will stop suffering? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honourable Member, as you rightly said, I initiated the establishment of the Ayensu Starch Factory during the PSI days under President Kufuor. So I have a sentimental attachment to that project, and anytime I'm back in government, it is a priority for me. I must say, though, that regrettably, there have been challenges with Ayensu, which basically is what has given rise to the comment that you are making. And I think, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, it's appropriate that I set the record straight. In April 20, let me backtrack a little bit. The company was offered to a company called Tiberius, which is, let's say, a subsidiary of the Zoomline company. That was in August 2015. 70% of the shares were offered to the Zoomline company, and the bid price through a competitive bidding process. The bid price was $4,450,000 US. Now, as a condition for allocating the 70% shares, the company Zoomline was required to pay 50% or 50% of the share price, and so the Zoomline company made an initial payment of $2,269,000, representing 51% of the shares. Now, there was a requirement in the sales and purchase agreement for Zoomline to complete the payment of the outstanding money to be able to have full control over 75% of the shares. But meanwhile, the company had been handed over to Tiberius. Now, regrettably, along the line, by the time we came into office in 2017, the company was no longer operational for a number of reasons. And meanwhile, the balance, the outstanding amount in excess of $2 million has also not been paid by Zoomlion. So, House, which was the transaction advisor, we engaged them to see whether we could have an amicable resolution of this matter. However, as I speak now, the money has still not been paid. And according to the provisions of the sales and purchase agreement, the company that's Zoomlion was then supposed, or the shares of the company was supposed now to revert back to government in a certain proportion. So again, we wrote to them that government, by the provisions of the agreement, now had the majority shares. We tried to engage with each other. Regrettably, it ended up that the Zoomlion company actually was unable to pay the workers for quite some time. So the ministry actually stepped in, and we were compelled to pay outstanding salaries of the workers from September 2018 to December 2019 in order to prevent chaos amongst the, Now, again, going forward, the company, that Zoomlion's company, actually abandoned the factory. And so we had to request for security from the police to make sure that there was no interference with the factory. Now, along the line, I think Zoomlion's company filed a writ in court, an injunction against the government to prevent us from interfering with the company, which I think is regrettable, because if you still have an outstanding amount of money to pay, the easiest thing is to pay up, and then basically we resolve these matters. But I think that I would like to end here because the matter is still in court. But I want to give you the full assurance, Honorable Member, because I know the company is also dear to your heart, that we will find ways and means of, once the court order is vacated, we can find ways and means of finding a lasting solution to this problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we would appreciate a copy of any report. Excuse me. Thank you. If there's any report to what that effect, because Zoomlion is not here to defend themselves. So we'll take your word. But we just need the factory to work for the youth to get work to do. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yes. Yes, let me listen to you.
Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of sitting this morning, you drew our attention to some COVID protocols. It appears we have sat for more than 3 hours, and I believe that we are in breach of our own rules. If leadership can advise us on that, we'll be happy.
When it was exactly 2 hours, I suspended sitting, and we resumed a little less than an hour ago. So the leaders will make sure we stay within 1 hour, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee the number of agencies that are under his ministry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I can do a quick numbering of it and then give that to you. Yeah.
Now I'm talking about the number of agencies, the agencies under you. The agencies under the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Okay. The Standards Authority.
Okay.
There's the Ghana Free Zones Board.
Okay.
There's Trade Fair Authority, which is a private company, but in a sense, it's still part of our network. Then the MD SSI, which is now the Ghana Enterprises Agency. And then there is Gratis, which is a program under the Rural Enterprises program. And then, of course, by extension, there are these other companies like Ayensu, Japan Textiles, Commander Sugar Factory, that are not agencies but are affiliated to.
So the reason why I'm asking this is that when I went through your handing over notes.
When you went through what? Your
handing over notes. The handing over notes.
Yes, okay.
Completely missing was Ghana Trade Fair Authority. Is there any reason why in your handing over note there was no mention of the Ghana Trade Fair Authority?
As I said, these private companies that have government boards established under the company's code have a different kind of relationship with the ministry, and that's probably the only reason why you didn't find it.
Mr. Chairman, is the same with Ghana Standard Authority? Is the same with Ghana Export Promotion Authority?
It is not. Trade Fair Authority is different. As I said, it's a private company. Standards Authority is an agency of government, and Ghana Export Promotion is also.
That's why I'm asking this, because that's why I first asked you the agencies under you, and you mentioned the Trade Fair Company. Sorry. Yeah, you mentioned Trade Fair Company as one of the agencies under you.
You mean in this?
Yes. When I asked about the agencies under you, you mentioned Trade Fair Company.
Just to clarify, it's a private company with shares.
Oversight is
fully held by government. It's not an agency; it's a private company.
So it's a private company, but the supervisory rule is under your ministry.
Yes, we have ministerial oversight, but I've indicated in a number of my responses that there's a limitation in terms of the oversight compared to other agencies.
In an earlier answer to a question about the redevelopment, you said that because you had this not firm grip because of the way you operate, it was an operational thing and you didn't have in-depth knowledge about what happened during the procurement and what have you. Did I get you right?
I indicated that there was a board in place, the management team that supervised the process. If you're talking about the current process that they are going through, then that has been supervised by the board and then the management team. But there's an interministerial committee that has been established by cabinet to which they report. So it's not just the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
I was asking this because earlier when, I think, if I remember very well, Honorable Sweeney asked and said that because they had a board, you didn't know anything about the procurement breaches that he was talking about. That was under international competitive bidding. That was abrogated and that led to some crisis. You said because they had a board, you were not familiar with the issue. Is that the impression I got in answering that question?
Chairman, I said we were not directly supervising the exercise.
But you remember that there was a subcommittee of cabinet to investigate the abrogation of those tenders, which was chaired by you.
Can you come again? There was a subcommittee.
Maybe let me go this way. Do you remember Leroy Company Limited.
Yes, I do.
They wrote a petition to you about this abrogation of contract by the Ghana Trade Fair Company Limited.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yes, I remember. Yes, I do.
And you remember that you responded to their letter and you even met them. You remember that?
Yes, I remember. Honorable Member, I'm trying to understand the inquiry. So I remember that they made a representation that they had gone through a bid process during the term of office of the previous government, and that they've realized that the bid process and the offer to them had been truncated. And obviously, as I said, my first effort was to contact the transaction advisors, and the transaction advisors indicated that the bid process was completed and an offer was made to the company Leroy, but they did not fully execute the terms of the sales and purchase agreement, on the basis of which the original offer that was made to them was withdrawn. So that's the basis for that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, so did you seek to get those documentation to ascertain what the transaction advisors were telling you were the facts, or it was just based on the briefing they gave you?
No, as I have indicated, Mr. Chairman, I consulted with the transaction advisor. He showed me the documents, and on the face of the documents, it was clear that the offer had been made to them. They were supposed to pay money into an escrow account. It did not happen, and on the basis of that, the offer was withdrawn. I had extensive discussions with Leroy and actually encouraged the company to work along. I mean, unfortunate as it was, I mean, if the offer had been withdrawn, it has been withdrawn. But because the project was going to be started again, I had suggested and proposed to the company to work along with the new management and the board to ensure that when the new bid process was going to be initiated, that they would have, let's say, the opportunity of participating in that bid. So basically, that's what.
Okay, so the subcommittee of cabinet that you were chairing,
Yeah.
did you prepare this report to cabinet for a report?
Yes, I mean that has been the basis for what I'm telling you now.
No, I wanted to be sure whether there's finality by you reporting to cabinet when this subcommittee was formed to investigate this matter, that you were conclusive that these were the facts, and you have reported back to cabinet, and cabinet have accepted that, oh, there was no any wrongdoing. I just wanted to be sure that there's finality on that matter.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Member, I cannot recall exactly the report that was made, and it's not every subcommittee of cabinet that reports unless the matter has come up. But the Ministerial facilitation team has been apprised of this of this development.
Chairman, even though he rightly said the Trade Fair Company Limited is more or less operating like a business that has a board of directors, are you aware that the Trade Fair land lease has expired? The land, the Trade Fair, where they are situated, the land, the lease has expired. Are you aware?
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, the matter has been handled by Lands Commission. It has been regularized, and any information in respect of that can be ascertained from the Lands Commission. They've handled this to together with the board and management. That has been regularized, and the lease, the transfer has been effected.
Mr. Chairman, earlier he was answering a question with regards to the Commander Sugar project, and if I heard you right, you said the valuation that was done in 2016 valued the project as $34 million US, right? In 2016.
In 2016, yes.
And do you remember which company did the valuation?
It was a company that was a center that was appointed by the transaction advisor. A center.
And was it PwC?
It was the transaction advisor PwC that appointed the company, the valuation company.
So, and you said when PwC, the same PwC, then did the revaluation in 2017, the value reduced drastically. That was the word you used. Is that my understanding?
Yes, very much so.
What was the value, the revaluation, what value came up?
I think the second valuation, which was done by the company called, I think I have the name, Valuation Appraisal Consults, they valued it at $12 million.
Which was still supervised by the same transaction advisor, PwC?
Yes, Honor.
Honorable nominee, you didn't find anything wrong that one transaction advisor, the same transaction advisor, getting a company to do valuation, and in just about 11 months, the same transaction advisor does another valuation, and we lose close to $22 million US in value. That didn't ring any bell.
Mr. Chairman, in actual fact, contrary to what you are saying, because of the controversy that has been hanging over the company since we took over, and I've already made this point earlier on, we were very interested in interrogating the value of this company and establishing the facts once and for all. Because even during the previous government's term of office, when the valuation or not the bid process was conducted, literally almost all the bidders bid below $15 million. So I was a bit surprised that you have a company that is valued at $35 million. Everybody is bidding below $15 million. And I took an interest in this. So I also talked to industry experts. And I don't remember any of them that had suggested that the value of this would exceed, let's say, $20 million, albeit without valuation. This is just industry experts talking. And you remember I made the point that based on all this, we had requested for a forensic audit to be undertaken independently by Yoko. And the report of Yoko actually confirms and establishes the value of the plant and machinery that is in question at $15.4 million. So again, I cannot speak on behalf of the transaction advisor. Yes, indeed, they recruited the first consultants, and we requested, because of all the controversy, that they appoint another group, and they did that, and then they presented the report to us. So, and as I've established, whether it was the bid process during the previous government's term of office, or currently, or during, let's say, our term of office, when another bid process was issued, we had the same challenge in terms of value and how much people were bidding for. So basically, that's what I.
So, Mr. Chairman, my worry was, as the sector minister with the oversight responsibility, what questions or what answers did you demand from PwC, the transaction advisor? Because my worry is they advised and they chose the first evaluators that valued at 34. The same advisors now chose another company. They brought it to 12 billion. And I thought it would be fair as the minister to be asking the transaction advisors what account for this huge variation. And I don't know whether they were able to get you some answer, or you didn't find necessary to ask the PwC why the huge variation.
Mr. Chairman, the answer is simple. They recruited a consultant to do valuation. They had a certain value. Based on, the same analysis that had been done by different experts, we wanted another valuation to be done, and they came out with that. And as I've suggested and submitted in my earlier response, almost totally, all the base that came put the price of the facility around 12 to 15 million dollars. So the fact that they did an earlier valuation and they estimated it at 34 does not mean that is there. But at any rate, just to give you comfort, Mr. A forensic audit has been undertaken and they've established the price, and this was done by CSIR, which is a government agency. So I do not want to get involved in deciding. When it comes to the forensic audit and the matter is interrogated, the real facts will be established.
Well, Chairman, maybe the reason why I've stayed around this for long is my expectation was that PwC should have had some answers to provide, because they were technical and a specialized group. That's why they were engaged to advise and to supervise those activities. So if they did and accepted the first valuation, now another valuation comes and they don't have any answer to provide, I found that to be not satisfactory, because I thought that they should be able to explain. You are technical people, how did you accept the first one that is so varied with this second one? But anyway, Mr. Chairman, what I wanted to find out is that you said in your earlier answer about the necessary things that were needed to say that this factory was complete. You talk about the crusher, you talk about the horizontal and vertical crystallizers, and you said that it was only the horizontal crystallizers that were installed, but without the vertical. So it meant that when the testing was done, it was not full, it was not a complete test. Is that the impression?
Yes, indeed.
So when they did the test, the sugar that came out of it, you want to mean was a brown sugar, or which kind of sugar?
Mr. Chairman, yes, indeed, that's the case. I know this is not a court of law where you admit evidence, but I specifically brought with me, let's say, the product that came out of the test run, basically to show whether it is white sugar or brown sugar, because the controversy has been that it produced white sugar. And I know that in the petition there was a reference to my deputy minister having made a statement to the fact that it was white sugar. But this is basic engineering. You know, if you have let's say components of machinery that has to be present to produce a certain effect, and it is not there, there's no way you can get that. So I mean, unless this is contrary to your procedure here, I would like them to show you the product to see whether it is white sugar or brown sugar, and basically the matter then will be laid to rest.
Well, even the chairman, as he makes effort to
but we can go.
I mean, I'm not necessarily going to. What I just want to find out whether the minister will say that this company was conceived and implemented in error. Will it be right for anybody to say this? That this company was conceived and implemented in error?
Chairman, if the Honorable Whip, I'm not supposed to, I was Minister for Trade. I have restrained myself not to join the discussion because of the Whip. But some of the issues are not being, we would need to re-examine some of the details. I'm unable to speak because my last official function as Minister for Trade was on 14th August 2014, and it was to cut sword with President Mahama for the commencement of the Commander Sugar Factory. Now, as to competitiveness, and Minister, you can check your record, the Indian government had written formally for misprocurement of Commander Sugar Factory. So I had to step back and reintroduce a new process in making a determination who won the contract. And it went through an international competitive process satisfactory to the Indian High Commission. What the Honorable Muntaka has asked now, I will say policy error because we all didn't do what was right. When President Mahama was commissioning Commander Sugar Factory, if you watch the clip, that morning the Indian government approved an additional 24.1 million to support the further development of outgrowers and irrigation, which up to date have not been utilized. So we are just putting up the factory without doing what was necessary to support sugar plantation. Then we also had evidence that one of the water bodies there, which supported sugarcane development in 1967, because of Galamsey and others, couldn't play the role that it had to play. I just thought that I should share this with you. But I agree with you that, Minister, what the Honorable Mutaka wants to establish, the fall in the numbers, the sharp fall, the same price Waterhouse. Why would you value a property at this level? And only within 10 and 11 months, probably, we needed an independent assessment, not by price Waterhouse again. That's what I'll say whilst you continue, just to put the facts right.
So, Chairman, I'll just continue. That will the minister say that this company was conceived and implemented in error? Will you agree with anybody who says this?
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, following the interjection of the minority leader, I agree with him completely. I'm not here to respond on behalf of Pricewaterhouse, but what I did, which was the only way you can have an independent assessment based on the facts, is through the forensic audit. And the forensic audit report is then considered as the independent valuation that the minister is, the minority leader is talking about. Yes, so that's the forensic audit. But then specifically as to the question about the fact that it might have been conceived in error, it is difficult to understand the nature of the question because there were technical challenges. Because number one, I think the Honorable Member of Parliament ought to know that there were major challenges with land availability around the factory, because the original 1967 construction, which had extensive land supporting sugarcane cultivation had been encroached on. And as I'm sure you are aware, if you plant sugarcane at a distance beyond a certain recommended radius, you actually lose the sucrose content of the sugar. And so that will result in operational, let's say, inefficiencies. So, for example, if you look at this particular case of where was the land to grow the sugarcane, if your answer was that there was not enough land available to feed the factory with sugarcane, you may interpret it as I can't remember what you said, concept, an error in concept or something like that. You know, basically.
Whether it was conceived
in error
and implemented in error.
Yes. So as I'm saying, it could be one of the factors that you consider if you want to determine whether it was conceived in error.
So from what the answers that you also gave, it really meant that some sugar was produced in the company.
When you say some sugar was produced, when you do test run, you don't produce sugar in quantities that you can describe as some quantity of sugar was produced. It's just a test run.
Yeah, so even if it was just test, and President Mills, late President Mills, tasted some sugar, that sugar was not imported sugar outside the factory, but it was sugar that was really produced in that factory.
Are you referring to President Mills? I'm not aware that President Mills tasted.
Well, there was this argument that no sugar has ever been produced there, and the sugar that was tested was imported from abroad.
Did you say President Mills? That's what he's asking you, because they was not sure President Mills was there.
Yeah, President Mama, sorry.
Honorable Member, I'm not in the position to testify to the tasting of sugar by President Mahama. But what I can tell you as a technical fact is that because there was, let's say, some missing components of the equipment, what is described as white sugar was not produced during the test run. And it's a matter of record.
You spoke about the Agrotech, Ghana Limited, and you were talking about shared purchase agreement or concession agreement. Which one is it? Is it concession agreement or shared purchase agreement?
Can you come again?
You are talking about the nature of the agreement that we are going into currently with the Agrotech Ghana Limited.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I wanted to be sure which kind of agreement are we having with them, even though you said it's not yet completed.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, again, just to back up respectfully, when we talk about sugar, you still have brown sugar come out of the process. So that's what I was referring to, just in case I'm not mistaken in referring to the fact that no sugar was produced. Yes. But again, we are talking now about a concession agreement. A concession agreement. That's what I was referring to.
So, even though you claim, you in your earlier answer, you said the process is not yet complete. What are some of the terms in there that you may want to share with us?
They are looking for certain incentives. For example, they would require a permit to bring in raw sugar to, let's say, produce during the period where they are now cultivating sugarcane to feed the plant. They are asking for protection, for example, over a period of time when the, let's say, the investment has been done and they are hoping that they can generate some profit to be able to pay their concession fee, that we must ensure that the market is not flooded by cheap sugar. There are a number of areas that they've drawn attention to, which is being finalized. These are genuine areas of concern. But maybe I must mention that we've developed a new sugar policy, which hopefully would come before this honorable house, particularly because of certain incentives that are required to attract major investors into the industry. And so we are hoping that that when that is done, it may respond to some of the issues raised. But we are pushing that even before the sugar policy is brought before this house, if they can still finalize the concession agreement to enable the factory to at least be operationalized, subject to further incentives that may be granted to them. So that's where we are now.
I just want to find out from what has it taken us almost 4 years to get to where we are? Couldn't we have gotten this over and got the factory running much earlier than where we are now?
Mr. Chairman, again, I've been very conscious of making sure that I don't take too much time getting into the details. But I have a detailed timeline analysis of what has happened over the years. All this talk about valuation, revaluation, forensic audit, all these things take time. Even going through another bid process, you are quite experienced in this, but you know that it takes time. You know, we are even more eager than anybody else to ensure that the project takes off.
So will you be willing to share the timetable that he's talking about? Are you willing to share with this committee those details of the processes that have brought us to where we are and where we are hoping to be able to get this factory running?
Oh yes, if you're talking about what it has taken for us to get to where we are, yes, I have a detailed chronological analysis of when we started.
And you are willing to provide a copy to the committee?
Oh yes, absolutely. I can extract it. Okay. And then,
Mr. Chairman, the vehicle manufacturing plants that we have, you've had a number of agreements, right? You've had a number of agreements with these automobiles to establish in Ghana, right?
Yes, we have.
How many do you have so far?
Currently we have Kantanka, we have Toyota, we have Toyota and Suzuki, we have Nissan, and then Sinotruck, and then we are just about to issue a brief bona fide assembly license also for some other Isuzu, and then for Peugeot.
I just want to find out whether any of them was international. Is any of them an international agreement? I know Kantanka is fully owned by Ghanaian.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether any of the other companies are owned by foreigners.
No, it cannot be, because these assemblies are, I would say, assembling on behalf of the global manufacturing companies. And that's the standard practice. So they will give you a technical license, and you, as a local company, you produce under their technical supervision. So the companies are owned by Ghanaians.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out.
But if I can also say that in cases where, for example, Toyota decides that they will not work through a local assembler, but they will do it directly, that would be an agreement, and it's not typically an agreement, it's a licensing agreement for them to be able to establish an assembly plant.
Mr. Chairman, so having heard the minister repeatedly say assembly plant, so they are actually not manufacturing vehicles, they are only assembling them. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, that's how the industry is managed all over the world. You start, it's a progressive escalation. You start with assembly, and then once you start a component manufacturing, let's say, business, then you gradually add local content by components that are produced locally, and then you move on from assembly to enhanced, so we move from SKD to enhanced SKD. This is semi-knockdown, that's the SKD, and it's all assembly, and then the final stage will then be fully manufactured, because with all the components manufactured locally. It's just the way the industry is established and managed.
Mr. Chairman, in an earlier answer to a question about this Nigeria-Ghana trade clashes, you said that you currently have some agreed framework. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, indeed.
So this framework is outside the ECOWAS treaty that we all are aware of?
The ECOWAS?
The ECOWAS treaty.
Well, I think in an earlier response that I gave in respect of this matter, I indicated that the standard provision in the GIPC law is that certain enterprises or activities are reserved for Ghanaians. So there's no confusion about that. But then I also indicated that there are other local regulations and laws that have to be respected if you want to do retail business, whether you are a Ghanaian or you are a foreigner. And so part of what we've done is to ensure that the foreigners, not only ECOWAS citizens, other citizens who are not Ghanaians, follow all these rules that we are talking about. So we are not sidestepping the GIPC provision. But in the case of ECOWAS, as I indicated, we've managed now to agree that the provisions of our local laws and legislation and regulations have to be respected. But in ensuring that we enforce these laws, that we will give them an opportunity to regularize their trade, just to ensure that in the spirit of long-standing bonds of friendship, that we give them an opportunity to regularize their trade. So that's the arrangement I was talking about.
Lastly, I just want to find out whether you know Dennis Ejejumo.
Come again?
Dennis Ejejumo, whether you know the gentleman.
What?
Dennis Ejejumo.
Yes.
He works in your law firm.
Well, I'm a silent partner in that law firm.
Oh, you are a silent partner?
Yes.
But it doesn't take away
because I cannot practice, actively was in government.
And he is the Minister of Trade and Industry rep on NIB?
Yes.
Why? Because this is somebody working in your law firm and he's representing Minister of Trade and Industry. The rep that Minister of Trade and Industry is supposed to take on NIB. And you think that is right? The provision or the requirement, and it's not only for NIB, you have the flexibility to nominate
any representative, except if it is required by the provision establishing the particular organization that you have to nominate a director of the ministry or so on and so forth. So we have many people serving on boards, and what you are required to do normally will be that the company, in this case NIB, would request for, let's say, a lawyer because they are composing their team. And so I know his competence, and so that's why I propose.
But I thought that he's not a staff of Minister of Trade and Industry, but the Minister of Trade and Industry will nominate a person who is not working within the ministry to represent it on a board that Minister of Trade and Industry is supposed to have a rep.
Yeah, I've just explained, Honorable Member, if maybe I wasn't clear, that there are enactments that specify that you have to nominate, let's say, a director or some other official of the Ministry of Trade, no below a certain rank. But in many others, there's no specific requirement, and there are many cases where we have nominees that are not staff of the Ministry of Trade. That was the explanation I was given.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable. Thank you very much.
Chairman, I should thank you, but Honorable Minister, just to take it from the Honorable Muntaka, I think when you get back and when you do get approved, you probably will want to check the records once again on Commander Sugar Factory. As captured in your own handing over note, page 54 of your handing over notes, financials, and I just quoted and shared some details with you. For the implementation of the project, the government of Ghana secured a $35 million CD LOC from the Indian Exim Bank of India for the construction of the sugar processing factory. And Minister, to put it on record, that the Indian Sugar Federation shortlisted the 6 companies for the government of Ghana. It went through a competitive bid process and was approved by the Central Tender Board under the chairmanship of Dr. Ajay. So I just thought that when you go back, you can check this record. What we need to do is to find out the role of Price Waterhouse, because I share the view that it's been undervalued. That is my view. So probably we should work towards a re-evaluation of it by an independent person. But I just thought that this should be on the record. And as I've introduced it based on your own handing over note, what I do know is that sugar loves water, land, and sunshine. So further development is like Depale in Nasia area, and then Daboya connecting through Savlugu. We probably can look at it, and I believe that the Mauritius government was interested in it. That's why they requested for the double taxation regime with the government of Ghana. Do we have a sugar policy? Are you contemplating a sugar bill? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a sugar policy which has been approved by Cabinet, and there are certain incentives that are required under the policy to be provided to support the development of the industry. And so in due course, hopefully very soon, we'll be bringing, let's say, a draft bill here to Parliament for consideration and approval.
Thank you, Chair. What is the fate of the Northern Star Tomato Company in the Upper East region, Palugu, and why is it not benefiting from government stimulus support as the only surviving factory or industry in that area, the Palugu tomato factory? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The Honorable Minority Leader, we have for a long time been working at getting private investors strategic investors to take over the Pualogo factory. As I speak now, we have 5 major companies that have expressed interest. We haven't gone through a formal bid process because all of them wanted to do their own technical assessment and investigation even before they would express formally an interest in the company. The major challenge that many of them have indicated is that they want to be sure that they can produce tomatoes at a competitive price for processing. So that was.
So can they be assured of government support in the coming years under your watch as minister if you do get approved?
Yes, I can give you that assurance.
What's the status of the Ayensu starch factory? What happened to it? $7 million investment over the years. And are you aware that even today in Ghana, there is shortage of beer because of the raw materials that is required to produce it owing to COVID? Ghanaians in the value chain of beer selling are suffering because of low production of beer in the country. I don't drink it. Chairman is excited about beer, but I have friends who are engaged in the beer business and their trade have been largely affected because of the lack of raw materials. I'm relating it to Ayensu starch factory. How come we cannot produce starch in Ghana in commercial quantities to support further industrial development of our country? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I've provided an extensive response to this same issue raised by the honorable member from Autu Senya East or West. Okay, and I had indicated that.
Honorable, he'll move on.
Sorry.
He'll move on, so you don't have to repeat the answers.
Yeah, I won't. So that's what I was saying.
But I hope Chairman have taken note that there is threat to shortage of beer in the country, and that is major news for beer consumers. Ghana Standards Authority, you need to revise their legislation to give them meaning in certain quality standards. What assurances do we have from you that you initiate new reforms to restitute the Ghana Standards Authority, including giving them the power and the capacity to do metrology with the discovery of oil in Ghana? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Member, Minority Leader, the process has been fully exhausted. It's gone through Cabinet, and then hopefully it will be laid before this Honorable House in the next couple of weeks or months. So that review has been done. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman relates to me that you responded to Japan Textiles, Akusumbo Textiles, even where my uncle Honorable Mwakwata used to work, GTP, all of them, no capacity. An industry which used to do 75,000, today you are talking of less than 3,000 workers. What are we not getting right as a country for the development of textile? And do you have any plans for cotton production?
Thank you, Chair. Chairman, once again, I've responded extensively to an earlier question that was raised, and maybe it might not be necessary for me to go over this. Thank you, Chair.
Are you working on an advertising bill or has been passed?
It's been completed. It's gone through a review by the Attorney General, and so it will come before this House in the next couple of months.
Legislative instrument for Export and Import Act to take care of textile stamp. What's the state of it and what will you do about it?
That has also been the exercise of reviewing the current legislation has been finalized. There needs to be an agreement between the industry players and the company that is supposed to issue the tax stamps. So we are at the final stages of that agreement.
Can we be assured that when you are minister, you work on countervailing measures under the Ghana International Trade Commission Act to allow for early resolution of disputes that may be trade related, and to provide for a legislative instrument to safeguard measures under the Ghana International Trade Commission Act?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Minority Leader, we've done exactly that. Maybe just to put it on record, that the Ghana International Trade Commission has already concluded its maiden investigation against the importation or the dumping of aluminium cores into Ghana, a complaint that was filed by Aluex. And so a formal determination has been made by the Ghana International Trade Commission. So you can be assured that that is already actually...
Chairman, Ghanaian contractors are complaining about high costs of steel, iron rods, high cost of cement, which is affecting the construction industry generally. What do you intend to do about it as Minister for Trade and Industry, the escalating prices?
Thank you, Chair. Again, Chairman, I've already provided a response to this question in respect of cement. I've already given, in respect of steel, I know that it's always a big challenge because the cost of scrap continues to escalate, and that's a major reason, because we don't, unless we finalize our project on iron and steel development, we still unfortunately have to deal with costs of scraps, the escalating cost of scraps. Yeah.
Chairman, I will be ending here with just a comment that the Honorable Kyeremanteng, as Minister for Trade, to be renewed as Minister of Trade. He knows my strong views on the matter. I think that the Ghana Exim Bank must be situated within the Ministry of Trade and Industry and not the Ministry of Finance. And I've conveyed so strongly on the floor of Parliament here. And I even believe that at worst, the Minister for Trade and Industry should chair the Ghana Exim Bank. And probably to let you appreciate why I said you were the Minister for the Economy, not Finance. The economy, domestic and international, is in your hands. You can stimulate businesses, you can grow entrepreneurs and others. But I still think that you must check your record on the GC net thing, because I believe that if the contract was signed in 2013, it probably was for 10 years, so that would have been 2023, but with a proviso, because you are a respected lawyer, with a proviso that after 5 years, an assessment be done for a re-extension of the time. Chairman, with this comment, I can only wish him well and look forward to Ghana benefiting enormously from AFTED. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nominee, for attending upon the House. We've done 4 hours, even though today we thought we would do much less. We've done 4 hours with you. You're discharged for now. You hear from us.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm grateful to the honorable members. Thank you.
Very well, honorable members. We resume in 5 minutes to do the regional minister.